Most creators don't know how they're coming across. They think they have a marketing problem or a funnel problem or an algorithm problem, but sometimes within 5 minutes of talking to someone, you can tell exactly why they're stuck. Today, I'm talking to someone who has spent years behind the scenes with creators, not as a coach, not as a hype person, but as a producer. She's helped shape podcasts and video shows from the inside. She's worked directly with the talent. She's seen who grows, who stalls, and why. Bekah Donovan is an executive producer of podcasts and videos. She produces multiple shows, works freelance with creators, and for years we worked side by side at Uscreen, diagnosing businesses, building content, and serving creators just like you. She's seen what most creators can't see about themselves, so let's start there. Bekah, within 5 minutes of meeting a creator, what tells you whether they're going to grow?
This is such a hard one to answer. I've been sat and I've been trying to think about if there's like a secret sauce, even though I hate that phrase, around what is the thing that's going to tell me that a creator is going to grow. 5 minutes, number one, is not enough time because no matter how much talent or inherent talent I believe a creator has or someone who's going to go on camera has, it's all about what they do with it. So no matter how much talent they have, if they're not ready to be consistent and be disciplined and push themselves and all of those things, then inherently that talent doesn't actually mean anything. But one of the key things is their ability to speak well. Like no shit, Sherlock, right? But I think there's a huge difference between somebody who already has their own voice naturally, and I can sort of tell straight away whether that little thing is there or not to be encouraged, and I can train somebody and help them grow that and get more confident with that, versus someone who is very much putting on a performance of somebody else. They've taken in so much creator content, or they're really, really inspired by somebody else, so much to the point that they have become sort of a mimic of that person. And that is incredibly difficult to work with because often the resistance to allowing the producer to help break that down so that we can really get to the root of who they are as a creator, that process can be really, really difficult if they've built up this performance and this persona of who they think they should be on camera versus who they actually are.
How do you balance that with kind of the knowing that as a creator, part of finding your voice is like the whole, there is some element of fake it till you make it, or
Mhm.
great artists steal, or good, what is it? Good artists steal, good artists borrow, great artists steal,
Yeah.
um, something along those lines. But like you, as a creator, finding your own style is kind of a portion of taking stuff in, trying it on, seeing what fits, and letting go of what doesn't. So
Mhm.
how do you balance that and where a creator is in that process with like you're having to get a like a good polished product out of them regardless of where they are on that journey?
It's one of those things where it's not black and white. When I'm sat in front of somebody, you are sort of having to make a lot of stuff up as you go. The role of a producer, I'm finding through my experience, is making that person as comfortable as possible. And it's a little bit like manipulation's not the right word, but it's like when you go into therapy, and if you speak to any therapist, they'll say, you can't tell people what to do. You tell somebody what to do, and that's not the way that you get them to do it. The way that you get them to do something or realize that they need to make a change is that you sort of guide them, and you'll know this from coaching. You guide them in the direction of creating the environment that where they feel safe and asking them the right questions that then get them to a space where they figure it out enough to do it by themselves. And that's essentially what a good producer, needs to be able to do with someone on camera, is you need to guide them in the direction of getting what you want or what you perceive to be the thing that they want. So first thing is, what do they want? Like if they are coming in and they have created this persona for themselves, which inherently a lot of us do because we mimic the people we like, we find the style that we like, and then we figure out how to do that. It's asking them first, like, what do you want? Why is this person the person that you really, really like? And get into the meat of their, not intention, but their uh what's the word? Get into the meat of why they've chosen certain things and why they are the way that they are at the moment and the things that they like and why they like those things. Can you repeat the question? I've completely lost my train of thought. I don't know what I'm saying.
It's okay. I was just asking, how do you balance getting a good polished end product with meeting somebody where they are in their journey as a creator,
Mm,
and whether
mm.
that is they're completely comfortable with their own voice and their own skin versus the creator who maybe is fresher and doesn't have their own voice established yet and they're still mimicking others.
Mm, mm. Well, I guess first of all, it's understanding what polished is because a polished version with somebody who is very strongly mimicking somebody else is going to be a different level of a polished version of a creator who is incredibly comfortable in front of camera and in their own skin already. So it's understanding what does success look like with this, and then allowing the space for that to be figured out. And ultimately, it's a dance, really. It is building a relationship and building trust between the two of us because a good producer, our job is to make that person feel as comfortable as possible, regardless of how much experience they have on camera or not. And if that person doesn't feel comfortable and doesn't feel safe with me, I'm not doing my job as a producer and we're not going to get the output that we want. So, and a lot of it is asking a lot of questions and letting the person speak, and then I need to just very actively listen to the things that are coming out of their mouth and maybe pull on threads that they're not necessarily aware of and encourage them to try certain things, and that all comes down to trust within the relationship.
What do you do to make people more comfortable on camera?
Um, well, one of the tricks, I do a lot of corporate work at the moment, which is a lot of people who probably have never sat in front of a camera in their life. Um, I am very aware of before they even walk in the room. If I'm communicating with them on email, for example, before we even meet, my tone matters with everything that I say. The way that I am on email needs to match the way that I'm going to be in person. And then, as soon as, no matter how tired I am on these shoot days, the second I first meet that person, I am the bubbliest human being you've ever met in your life. And I try and make them feel as comfortable and like downplay the whole situation whilst they're sitting down and ask them about their day and try and find something where we've got some common ground where we can have a little bit of a joke maybe about something. And then one of the key things is I don't make them look at the camera. Like, which can seem like such a counterintuitive thing of like, oh, you're on camera, so therefore you must be looking down the lens like this, and this is how you talk. No, actually, if you're incredibly uncomfortable in talking directly to a camera, don't look at it. So I will often I sit to the side and they look at me. They don't look at the camera because then we're having a conversation. I ask them questions and I say, repeat the question back to me in your answer. So it's as if I'm not even there. And that putting in as many reps of that as possible can significantly help just getting comfortable to the point where they do start looking at the camera. They do acknowledge its presence and they do then get a bit more comfortable with that. And I think that the beauty of that, especially for creators now, is you can do that if you want. If you want to make all of your content at first look as if you're talking to somebody else, then do it because you can do whatever you want. You've got to put the reps in somehow. If that's the way you need to put the reps in, do it that way.
What makes somebody immediately compelling on camera, in your opinion?
Yeah. So I've spent quite a bit of time thinking about this because I inherently feel incredibly comfortable on camera and I always have. And it's because I was a performer as a kid. I think that is a huge part of it. And I will never know whether I still would have been as comfortable on camera if I hadn't gone to musical theatre school as a kid, right? But and I'm a singer. Everything you say is like a song. If you listen to somebody speak who is just speaking like this and just has one note with everything that they say, it is the most boring thing you've ever heard in your life, right? But if you actually listen to good speakers, whether they're keynote speakers in person or storytellers or whatever, listen to their words that they're saying as if it's a song. It's going up and down, it's changing speed, it's slowing down, it's taking a break at the right point. You have to think as if you are singing a song even though you are speaking. That is how you make yourself more engaging on camera.
It's funny, that's exactly what I've heard. I bought this course on Black Friday called Stage Academy by his name's Vin. I want to say the last name is Jong or Zhang, something along those lines. An Australian guy, and
Oh, yeah, I've seen him. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
his content on YouTube is great, and he got recommended to me by actually a Uscreen customer of like, hey, if you're looking to get better at how you communicate and how you present on stage and all these kinds of things, he has some good stuff. And so I ended up buying his course. But one of the things he talked about early on, I think it was module 2, was
Mhm,
like, what is the melody of your voice like?
mhm,
And
mhm.
all the different intonation and inflection, which is exactly what you
Yeah.
just said. So it's funny to hear that reinforced from someone else.
And what I would say is, that if you are not a singer and that to you feels like such an alien concept and you're like, "I'm tone deaf, mate, there's no way for me," go and read poetry aloud and play around with find a couple of short poems so it's not overwhelming that you really like and go and practice reading that aloud to yourself in the mirror in front of your kids, bedtime stories if you've got kids, like practice using different parts of your voice and reading the poem in a different way, whether you speed it up or slow it down or intonate different words. That is one way that you can get around doing it if the music and the melody thing doesn't sit well with you.
Yeah. Are are there other voice, I don't know if tricks is the wrong word. Are there other voice
Mm.
techniques besides the melody thing that or the kind of shifting your intonation so you're not just very one note, that you think are just as important or critical to helping people communicate well on camera?
Yeah. Um, Understanding how you feel and think about things. And because one of the most difficult things as a producer who is so I'm an end-to-end producer as well. So I'm there from the creative concept of an idea all the way to editing and publishing. So at every stage of the process, I am thinking about as we're filming, I'm inherently thinking, how is this going to edit? I'm already thinking about the cut as we're sat talking. And one of the most difficult things is cutting out so's, ums, and then like if there's no break between an and a word that's then key to going into the edit. Oh my God, it's a nightmare. And a lot of that comes from lack of preparation as to what you're actually saying and what your thoughts on a topic are. So figure that out. And there are a couple of different ways of doing that. One of the things which is actually a mindfulness thing and is very, very good is journaling. That is a really great way for you to start processing how you feel about a certain topic. So if you know you're going to film on a certain topic, go and sit down and journal on it. Ask yourself the question, how do I feel about this or whatever, and then go and journal. And the reason that I also say is do it with a pen and paper is that it changes the way that your brain processes information. And it is an incredibly important part of it. Do not skip that part because we're on our phones all day or anyway. Your brain will not register it in the same way as it does processing it from brain to hand to paper. And repeating that, like if you've got a page of content, read it back to yourself aloud. You have to practice reading aloud and being aware and catching yourself of where you pause and where you get stuck. Um, that is another key thing that's really helpful. And it is putting in the reps of either practicing filming or talking in a mirror. Look at yourself and talk in a mirror. I am very fortunate in the fact that I think this is probably because I'm neurodivergent, but I remember as a kid practicing my acceptance speeches for the inevitable Oscars that I was going to win in the bathroom in the mirror, right? So I have never had an issue talking to myself out loud or talking to myself in a mirror when I've got to practice something like a performance so that I can see what my face is doing. It's so uncomfortable. It is so uncomfortable to do it. But if you are serious about becoming somebody who can speak well on camera, this is the uncomfortable shit that you have to do.
Yeah, I think I've talked about this before, but that's basically what I did to get better on camera
Yeah.
is that more than 10 years ago, I came to the conclusion that having the ability to speak in public comfortably, speak on camera comfortably, was a very valuable skill to have for the
Mhm.
development of my career and where I wanted to go. And so when my wife would leave for work, she worked night shifts at a local hospital, I would set up my camera 1 or 2 nights a week. I would pick a random topic and I would just talk to the camera for
Mhm.
like 15 to 30 minutes, and then I would go sit and watch it back. And that is, I think that's the hardest part, is forcing yourself to watch it back, because I've always wondered or thought it's odd when I hear of like a famous actor who says, "Oh no, I don't watch my own movies." Because
Mm.
to me, then it's, the question is, well, how do you ever get better if you don't know how you actually performed? Like if you're not
Mhm.
watching back, because you might be able to watch some selects on set or something like that, but to watch the full thing back, you get a better semblance of where and how to improve contextually, that you
Mhm.
don't get if you don't watch back your own stuff. Which, and I don't think it's, I'm not watching it back to like make myself feel better, because I am one of the worst, most ruthless critics of myself. Because I'm gonna watch something back and immediately just be like, oh, that hand gesture looks really weird. Don't ever do that again. That filler word that you just used again,
Mhm.
you need to cut that from your
Mhm.
vocabulary.
Yeah.
Your body movement or the tilt of your head looks like somebody snapped your neck, like little things, and I'm just brutal ruthlessly like eliminating those
Mhm.
things. So I think it is critical to watch yourself back if you want
Yeah.
to improve in this area. And the second thing that I'm really really working on right now is the elimination of filler words.
Mhm.
Anytime you feel yourself thinking like, so, just having silence instead is almost always better.
I
Those are,
100% agree with that, especially
it's
on the
so hard.
silent
It's
point.
it makes it a big deal on the editing side, but even in how you communicate it, it makes what you say so much more powerful, because you're not
Mhm.
filling those empty spaces. You're instead just letting those pauses kind of be pregnant and anticipatory of what's coming next, and that matters so much more to your audience than filling in the silence.
Mhm, 100%, and you never know what, like, to your point of the silence being pregnant, you don't know what is going to be birthed out of that silence, so give it some space to gestate.
Exactly. So you've spent years producing for other people.
Mhm.
What if anything have you underestimated about being the one behind the camera, or in front of the camera, or behind the microphone?
I think I fully underestimated actually how important a producer's role is in the outcome of a project. And it is, to what I said earlier, the thing that I think I underestimated was the relationship side and allowing that space for safety, because you have no idea how nervous somebody is coming into that room. And as the producer, you are the captain of the ship. The ship goes down if you're not in control. And I completely underestimated that. And luckily, I am someone who is very curious about human psychology and human behavior. And I have, for many years, I've done like a coaching certification. I went down the road of training to become a psychotherapist at one point, and that's on pause for now. But the skills that I learned through doing that work of like, oh, here's what active listening is, and here's how to actually listen to somebody to the point where you can guide them in a certain direction to get the outcome that you need to get out of the project. All of those skills, those people skills and relationship management skills, I think that is what makes the difference between a producer and a great producer. And one of the pieces of feedback that I get is that I do make people feel incredibly comfortable, especially these like executives within companies who've never sat down in front of a camera before, but also that I treat everybody the same. And I think that's really important, that regardless of their job title, I am going to treat you exactly the same, because you are coming in with the same feelings, the same nerves, the same anticipations. Like, you are just a human being coming into this room who I need to make feel as comfortable and confident within your own skin as I possibly can. And that is how I do a good job on the other side. And I just didn't even really think too much about that until I started just doing it and getting feedback on how important that was to the success of the project.
Does producing make it easier or harder to start and consistently run your own content?
I have such an interesting relationship with being behind and being in front of the camera. And I change my mind about which one I want to be forever constantly. And I think that that is the curse of my life. I think and I do think part of it is being a woman, and I think hormonal cycles have a huge thing to do with it, because certain times of the month I'm more keen to be out there and on camera and sit and record because I've got loads of energy, and other times I just want everybody to, F off and leave me alone. And I'm more than happy to just sit behind the camera and help other people do their thing. It is, however, I do believe that having the desire to be in front of the camera and having some semblance of my life be that helps me as a producer and helps me do a better job, because I'm not telling you to do something that I'm not doing myself. I am walking the walk, and yes, I might not be being as consistent because I've got kids and I've got a life and I've just, there's only so many hours in a day. But my intention is, with everything that I'm doing, is to learn and get as much juice out of the squeeze as I possibly can with what I'm doing. And I think my capacity to be in front of camera and to be trying to be better at doing that helps me help other people.
So you recently started a new Instagram account
Shocker.
again. Uh, why start something new instead of scaling your personal brand or what you had already had in place?
Yeah, I there's a couple of different reasons for this. One of them being, I had already deactivated my other account because I was done. Like, I was done. I didn't want to be on camera anymore. I'd had not a bad experience, but I'd had an experience that had sort of left a bit of a bitter taste in my mouth with the content that I was creating before. And it was going down a path that just didn't feel like it was fully aligned with actually who I am. It was very much a product of things that I was feeling at the time. And it was a bit of a double-edged sword because it gained traction, because it was, some of it was relatively antagonistic, and it gained traction because of that. And it was like, oh, hang on a minute, I actually don't think this is what I want. This is not how I want to be perceived by the world. This isn't how I want to present myself. And I just got to a point personally where I was done with it and I didn't want to do it anymore. So I did just shut it down and come away from it completely. And whether this is a perceived belief or it is actually real or not, I know that there was the possibility of opening that account back up and transitioning the brand into what I'm working towards now. That is very possible. I probably could have done that, but I also understand that how difficult it can be to retrain the algorithm in terms of changing the topic of content and changing who it's being shown to. I don't fully understand how that works. I also don't fully understand how to do that effectively. So it felt cleaner to me after that break to start something new and to have that clean slate and be like, I am so certain about this as my intention, and that it does align with my values. And if I think about what I want to be doing and being incredibly clear about what trajectory I'm on and who I want to be in the next 10 years, this feels aligned, even if it does have its little moments of morphing and changing, as inherently most of our content does. And I can train it from day dot that this is what this is. So there are a couple of different reasons for it.
What goes into launching a new creative direction like this from scratch?
That's such a hard. I am such a intense person when it comes to birthing a new idea, that I think about everything at once and I have to completely rein myself in. It is such, like,
Yeah,
I am,
how do you approach it without over engineering it?
you talk to AI nowadays is what you do. Like, I literally, have my chat GPT conversation about this project, and I have given it such clear constraints of I if I am going too far, if I'm trying to do too much, because I know you'll know this as well, of like I've worked in marketing for 15 years and I've had 3 different careers at least within that 15 years within marketing. So I know how to do everything, which means that I can, but it doesn't mean that I should. So it's uh, I've essentially given the constraints, the external constraints to my AI overlord LLM and have told it to rein me in because I only have so much capacity and so much time. And also, I know myself very well from how many times I've done this and then stopped because I've become overwhelmed by the amount that I'm trying to do. So I have to have something that gives me guardrails. Otherwise, I'm like a tornado. It's terrible.
What do those guardrails look like for you? Because I know from experience that that is true of many creators, not just you. It's
Yeah.
true of a lot of us. They're actually, I think it was Rob and I were talking about this last week, in that you have to be very careful when it comes to shiny object syndrome
What 100%.
as a
Yeah, I
creator.
saw that and it resonated so, so deeply with me. I was like, that's me.
It's so true, because you have finite resources to
Mhm,
dedicate towards whatever it is that you're going to do. And I'm
mhm.
experiencing this as I build out this podcast of like,
Yeah.
the next conversation, actually the podcast conversation that dropped today is with a social media manager. And I asked her, roast my strategy. And she was like, well, you're just repurposing clips. And what you should do is this. And I was like, okay, that sounds great, but what's the
Mm,
opportunity cost? Like what
yeah,
am I going to have to give up in order to do that, or am I just
yeah.
giving up what I was doing in order to do this? So I'm curious, like, what do those guardrails look like for you, and how do you keep things focused, clear, and simple for your content creation so that you don't end up going off the rails,
Mhm.
besides using AI to kind of whip you into shape?
I actually feel very strongly that it is having a clear vision on my life, and I know that that seems like a really dramatic thing to say, and I think I personally feel like in my old age of 35, I am now starting to go through I'm going through a maturation phase in terms of accepting and understanding actually what I want my life to look like. And I don't know whether it's the nice roundness of the number of 35 and being like, okay, if I think about 10 years at 45 years old, what do I actually want to be doing every day? There's a woman called Debbie Millman. She's like a legend within the design community, and I've listened to her podcast for years and years and years. And one of the things that she gets her master students to do is in 10 years time, like, what does a perfect day look like? She gets all of them to do that exercise as one of the first things that they do when they're on the master's program with her. And I feel like I've transitioned from a space of being very reactive, very worried about time running out, feeling the need to get everything done because I'm getting old, to sort of being like, oh, actually, touch wood, hopefully, I've got shitloads of time. And so, what I actually need to do is think about what exactly do I want my life to look like in 10 years' time? And if I were to step through the door into that life right now, would I be a good steward of it or not? And accepting that there are certain things that I'm going to have to let go of and certain things I'm going to have to be more disciplined with, but in a very soft and gentle way because I am a woman and I am not like Jocko Willink. But to be consistently disciplined with the things that are going to allow me to be a good steward of my life in 10 years' time and accepting those things and then putting those things into place and back to how that looks within the terms of the way that I work is not making things too complicated. So, what is actually sustainable? what are the things that I find really easy? What do I find really easy? What I find really easy is putting a camera and chatting shit for 15 minutes and then cutting that up. I tried last week going into a studio space and doing all of the things that everybody online would tell you to do, which is, prep all of your content, get all your scripts ready, go into a studio space, have the designated time to get everything done. I went and didn't. I hated it. I didn't like it. It felt so forced to me that I was like, that is not something I'm going to do again. What works for me is for me to be consistent in looking for the little signs within myself that something has inspired me enough to put the camera down and just sit in front of it and then work with whatever comes out, because I know that something good will have come out and there will be something in that I can use. And then whenever I feel like I want to add something new to the process, questioning why I want to add it. Am I wanting to add it because it looks on paper like the right thing to do for my business that doesn't exist? Or is it something that I really, really want to do, like starting a new podcast? That makes total sense for me. I know exactly what I'm doing and I can talk and talk and talk and talk clearly. Um, or do I want to start a newsletter? Why would I do that? And if I do I do it once a month instead of trying to push myself to do it every single week? And I have a love-hate relationship with social media, and it's like I don't want to be following trends, but I know that sometimes I'm going to have to. And it's just, I think it's knowing very, very deeply who you are and what you want. And then there are so many tools that we can use. There are so many different ways to do it that if you know who you are, you will know very clearly whether it's a yes or a no when you think about picking up a new tool. And if it's a no, put it down. Put it down. Don't do it.
When it comes to trying to grow something like this, what do people
Mm.
try to avoid that's usually
Oh,
a real issue?
the discomfort of consistency. And I
Mm.
am such a terrible human for doing exactly the same thing. And I question the repetition, even though I know that it works. Like, I know that it works. I know the consistency of the repetition works. I need to be saying the same things over and over and over again. And yet I will try and avoid the discomfort because I think, oh no, no one wants to hear that, no one wants to hear that. And it's like, well, actually 12 people have seen that reel that you've done, so you actually need to keep repeating it so that another 12 can see it. um I think it's that. I think it's the discomfort of consistency.
And shameless self plug here for coaching as a solution to that. Like, not that I'm like
100%.
I'm starting this podcast right now to get people to like hire me as your coach. No, like the best results I've ever gotten in my life from anything were
Hmm.
areas where I had a coach.
Yeah.
I almost 3 years ago got into the best shape of my life.
Hmm.
Got absolutely shredded, bone, like the smallest I've ever been in terms of like body fat, because I hired a coach. I hired
Yeah.
a coach. He did all, the only thing he did was relentlessly and brutally keep me consistent and on track. He kept me hammering on the fundamentals for 8, 9, 10 months to cut down and get to the shape that I wanted to get in.
Hmm.
Same thing with business. Like, I got a coach on the business side of things who pushed me. And that's what I have been for people at Uscreen, and for these people who have gotten their best revenue months ever, their best revenue years ever. It's because I showed up and was like, hey,
Hmm.
actually, you've got shiny object syndrome. These things you're doing are stupid. These things you're doing aren't moving the business forward. You say you're working on the business and doing this, but you're actually doing this, this, and this, which are
Hmm.
sideways distractions and energy. And what you need to do are go back to the fundamentals of getting clear message, a simple funnel, really good calls to action, really good email marketing, and run. And once
Yeah.
you've got that and you're showing up consistently and you do it for 6, 7, 8 months, oh, look, your revenue started to go back up. All of your
Mhm.
metrics are trending in a healthy direction, but it's only because you had somebody relentlessly focused on keeping you accountable. And so I've become a shameless advocate for coaching for
Yeah,
myself and for a lot of people, because I think that's just what we need. Like the greatest athletes of all time generally
literally.
have a coach.
Yeah,
Like
100%.
Roger Federer, no, Djokovic, like Michael Jordan had a coach, Tiger Woods had a coach. All these incredible athletes have coaches.
Mhm. Mhm.
The all the Olympic team, the Olympic closing ceremonies were yesterday, but the USA won gold in hockey. Well, it's not a bunch of players without a coach. It's a bunch of players with a coach who's
Mhm.
helping guide them towards what to do and when to do it and how to do it.
Mhm.
So I think huge, huge, huge bonus for people who find a coach and someone that is willing to keep them accountable and consistent.
Yeah, and on the other side of that, I think there are also the people who, they've done the consistency thing and they've done it too much, and the thing that they've been consistent with isn't working, and then they find it incredibly difficult. It's the sunk cost fallacy, right? Of like they don't want to give up the thing that they've already sunk so much time into. And I say this to people all the time in so many different areas of life of like it is dancing with the gray. Like, not everything is black and white. You need to understand how to dance with the gray in the middle. It's yes, you've been consistent on something, fantastic. You can be consistent, that's great, but this thing isn't working. So, have a strong belief about something, but hold it loosely and be able to let it go if you know that it's not actually serving the ultimate outcome that you want.
What's a hard truth about building as a creator that most people don't want to hear? And I know we already covered the consistency thing, and I think that's one of them. But what's another hard truth that you think most creators don't want to hear?
I so I've been thinking a lot about this as well. And I think part of it is accepting your ambition because you are going to have to sacrifice certain things that you are maybe going to get some pushback about in order to become the level of creator that you want. And that can be, you want to have like 3 million followers or whatever. It doesn't matter what your level of success looks like in terms of creation. What does being a creator enable you to be able to do? Because the reality of it is if you are not there yet, there's more work to be done. And that very, very well may look like sacrificing other things for a short period of time. And I am having this conversation with myself at the moment. One of the things that I have historically found quite difficult to accept as a woman and as a mother is that I am very career focused. I absolutely love working. I love building things. I love creating things. And if I didn't have kids, I would probably spend 7 days, 24. I would be one of those psychopaths who doesn't go out and do anything because all I want to do is build and create stuff. And I've found it really hard to accept that within myself. And I've accepted it now. I'm like, sorry, like this is who I am. And I know that I have people who are not going to be like, you're working too much. But I've also sort of had to accept that maybe there'll be some people in my life who don't like that I don't get to see them or give them as much attention as they got before because I really want to work. I really want to build stuff for the rest of my life. And if that is who you are, which if you are a content creator or a creator in any form of capacity, that's probably part of your makeup as well, is sitting in and accepting that that is what you are going to have to lean into and move forward with in order to create the outcome that you want, which is going to give you a very, very deep sense of satisfaction and contentment and joy within your own life.
What's something you think serious creators do differently that separates them from hobbyists?
I think they put in more reps for starters, but which is a very obvious thing to say. But I also think that there's nuance to it. I don't necessarily think that there's like one clear cut thing because I know even just within my own circle of there are incredible people who could be creating incredible things, but they just do not have the capacity, the time, the support to be able to go and do it. So I think that great creators are relentless and incredibly driven and they put in the reps and they accept that the work needs to be done. But I also think that I don't want to say that one thing is the thing that makes that work, and you're not a great creator if you're not doing it, because I just think that there's so much nuance to why those people are where they are, and a lot of the luck and timing that goes into that, and the privilege of their situation. Um, but it is just putting in those reps consistently at the best of your ability, and accepting that the best of your ability is what it is, and you've just got to do enough that you can remain consistent without burning yourself out and just continuing that cycle of like dropping it because you pushed yourself too far, which is so hard to do.
Bekah, thank you for being here, for the way you show up. Where should people go if they want to follow you, your work, or work with you?
If you are curious about what it actually looks like to work with a producer, then find me on LinkedIn. But if you are just curious about the content that I'm creating at the moment, which is called The Modern Feminine, I am on Instagram at the.modernfeminine. And I'm also starting a new podcast, obviously, because that is how I live my life, is constant new podcasts, which is under the same name, Modern Feminine.
All of Bekah's links are in the show notes below. And if you found this episode helpful, make sure you share it with somebody who might need it. Thanks everyone for listening, and we'll see you in the next one.